And so, about our last year, we had around 20 sites in 3 different states, and we helped over 9,500 families get their taxes done for free. And we only could do that because of people like you. The IRS estimates that that's an $18 million impact here in your community, which is great and tremendous, but we know there's a need for more. There is over 20% of people in our area who don't take full advantage of the tax credits that they earn, and we know that for a fact. And so it's our job to do that outreach and to make sure that people file their taxes correctly and get all the money that they deserve. Because there's a lot of those people out there, and I'm not going to name any names, but there's a lot of people out there that are taking advantage of people. And there's a lot of companies that are taking advantage of people. And we're here offering completely free services with IRS trained volunteers. And our acceptance rate is higher than pretty much any paid preparer. We had the IRS come and do secret shopper reviews at our sites last year when we passed with flying colors. So we're really proud of how we're running our sites. And we want to keep that up. And we want to keep that up because community members deserve that. And so we are a trusted source for people getting their taxes done in the community. People come year after year to our sites, and we know for a fact that we are a huge social support for them, and that they getting just being able to know that they can get their taxes done for free and have someone to go to is a weight off of people's minds. And we're just putting money back in people's pocket that really deserve it. So I really thank all of you here for being here today. We're excited that you're here and that you're willing to volunteer. It really is a rewarding experience giving back to the community and being a trusted member of the community. You'll have people asking after you, trying to get you to do their taxes again. And so we really appreciate everything that you do and everything that you're going to do with United Way. And so there's a lot of training ahead. It's a lot of taxes, but we want you to be able to learn it so that you can effectively communicate um, to the two different clients and community members, and you can effectively do taxes. So I know it's a lot of training, but taxes are a valuable skill, and we want to make sure everyone is prepared and ready. So you'll be doing a great service to the community, and we're really excited to have you here. Hunter?
Thank you, Matt. Um, Felicia, are you back yet? She emailed me, said that her power blinked, but it came back. So I'm seeing that she's in here. Are you back in here, or is that just showing from before? Might need to give her a few more minutes to hop back in here. Yeah, we'll give her just a few more minutes. I guess before we get started, we can talk about, Matt already really laid it out perfectly that this is a really valuable service and something that, this is my first year doing it with United Way, but this is my, I think, sixth year doing VITA in general. So, it's something that I'm really excited to be a part of each and every year. We get new volunteers that come and, serve the community for different reasons, but they all seem to really take a big piece out of it to where they feel like they are more integrated within their community, that there's really a lot of value in what we're doing, and that really does impact the lives of the people that we're able to serve. So I'm really, really excited that y'all are here. Um, and yeah, I know taxes, to some people, taxes don't sound as fun as they really are, but doing it through VITA, it really is more of a personal connection you make with people than it is just crunching numbers. You're going to work with a lot of people and they're going to share a lot of personal information with you. They're pretty much going to tell you the financial outlook of them and their family over the past
How you
year.
get all that over there?
Was that?
Touching something else, all the stuff down there. I'm gonna mute it. Put this mute. Hit that right there.
All right. But yeah, no, something that's really, really important, really personal. And people put a lot of trust into you when they come to see you and come to, give you their documents and their personal information at the site. So, there's a lot that goes into that. One of the first things we'll talk about are the volunteer standards of conduct and the ethics that are involved in it. You know, a lot of it might be stuff that you already know, isn't anything that's surprising to you, but it really is important to cover it all just because of the positions that we put ourselves in, where a lot of people are sharing really confidential, really personal information with us that, you know, we want to make sure everyone has a good understanding of, you know, our procedures and the ethics that go behind that, where everyone feels like they can trust us. Because if we lose the trust of the community, then, you know, VITA is really hard to pull off. And, you know, if you don't have trust, then I don't really see how you can do something like that. So making sure that we are doing everything by the book, doing something that is accurate and that people can trust us with information is, you know, one of our top priorities. So that's probably one of the first things that we'll look at once we should get back. Oh, I'm seeing you. Are you back?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, perfect. Then I'm going to make you the host. I will continue monitoring the chat, but I'll let you pull up all the stuff you want to pull up. Just the only thing I have is make sure that the recording stays recording so we can share this with anyone who might not have been able to attend tonight. It's currently recording. I don't think it'll stop when I transfer it over. Just wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay. Hello and good evening. My name is LaQuisha. I've been a VITA volunteer for I think this may be my 11th year. I'm not real sure. However, I am a lover of all things VITA, tax preparation. And so I really enjoy doing this type of training with you all. I hope at the end of this training, I will be able to get you all a solid or start a solid foundation for you all to be able to get this training completed, get your certification completed, and be confident in the role that you're taking this year as a VITA volunteer, site coordinator, or whatever that role may be for you. Tonight will be a little bit easy for us. We'll go into the different type of VITA roles, some that you all may be playing, some that you may not. We'll go into the volunteer standards of conduct. We'll also go over, if we have time, we'll go into Link and Learn, so that if you don't have a Link and Learn certification profile already set up, so that you can get that set up, as well as go into the practice lab. So you'll see what that looks like, because you will be using the practice lab in order to complete your certifications. All right. I will not do a lot in the past. I've normally read a lot of the information to you all. I don't want to read to you all, put you to sleep and do all of that. So a piece of this tonight will be you all taking a few minutes to read over that information as it relates to the different, if the 2023 changes, all of that. But other than that, I'll go over a lot of the information with you all. You can stop me at any point if I'm going too fast, if I'm not going fast enough. If you have a question or anything, you can stop me, or you can put it in the chat so that we can get that addressed for you. All right. Any questions or concerns before we get started? No? All right. Thank you so much. Give me just a few minutes so that I can, a couple of minutes so I can get the information pulled up for you. I had to change computers, something happened. And so give me just 1 second.
That's the reason I wanted to know. I may not be able to complete the training.
Okay, the first thing that we're going to go over, and I do apologize for the time, first thing that we're going to go over is the volunteer standard of conduct. And that's the publication 4961. I'm not sure if you all have that information. If it was part of the email that Hunter sent out. If not, you can access that information from irs.gov. You can simply type in publication 4961. It'll bring it for you. It'll bring it up for you. I will share the information on the screen so that you won't have to try to find it if you don't have it. But if you want to follow along with me, I am using the publication 4961, and I think it's been put in the chat, the link for it. And so if you want to access it there, you can. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So again, what I am using is the publication 4961, is the Volunteer Standards of Conduct and Ethics Training. At the end of this, there is questions, and those are the same questions that you will use for your Volunteer Standards Conduct certification. All right. And so it says that the mission of the VITA TCE return preparation programs is to assist eligible taxpayers in satisfying their tax responsibilities by providing free tax return preparation. To establish the greatest degree of public trust, volunteers are required to maintain the highest standards of ethical conduct and provide quality service. Annually, all VITA TCE volunteers must pass the Volunteer Standards of Conduct, or the VSC, certification test and agree that they will adhere to the VSC by signing and dating the form 13615, which is the Volunteer Standards of Conduct Agreement, VITA TCE programs. Once we get into Link and Learn, I'll show you all of that. Once you log into the Link and Learn, it gives you access to all of your certifications. Once you've completed the certification and you get ready to sign the form 13615, all of that information automatically populates on that 13615 of the certifications that you've taken and passed. And so you have to, as a VITA volunteer, complete the Volunteer Standards of Conduct certification test, no matter what your role is in the VITA program, whether you're a greeter or screener or a site coordinator. Everyone has to complete their Volunteer Standards of Conduct certification. In addition, return preparers, quality reviewers, coordinators, and tax law instructors must certify in intake, interview, and quality review. And that is something that we will also go over. Volunteers who answer tax law questions, instruct tax law classes, prepare or correct tax returns, or conduct quality reviews of completed returns must also certify in tax law prior to signing the form. Your form 13615 is not valid until the sponsoring partner's approving official or IRS contact confirms your identity, your name and address, and they have to verify a photo issued ID and sign and date the form. And so normally that's your site coordinator, or I'm not sure if Hunter or someone from VITA would or United Way will be signing those forms for you, but those forms must be completed and signed, not only by you, but also by that approved official in order for it to be valid. All right. We are going to go over the Volunteer Standards of Conduct, as well as the quality site requirements. There are 6 volunteer standards of conduct, and the Volunteer Standards of Conduct number 1 goes over the quality site requirements. And so we'll cover all of those on tonight. All right. So the integrity of the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, or the VITA, and tax counseling for the elderly TCE programs depends on maintaining public trust. All taxpayers using VITA TCE services should be confident that they are receiving accurate return preparation and quality service. All volunteers are responsible for providing the highest quality and best service to taxpayers. Along with this responsibilities, all volunteers, again, must sign and date the form 13615. stating that they will uphold the highest ethical standards and follow all quality site requirements. The reason for ethics training, during past filing seasons, the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, or TIGTA, and IRS SPEC discovered unacceptable practices at a few VITA TCE sites. In response to these issues, IRS SPEC enhanced the volunteer standards of conduct. The intent is to provide guidance and a structure for regulating VITA TCE volunteers and to protect taxpayers. When unscrupulous volunteers intentionally ignore the law, it compromises the integrity of the VITA TCE program as well as the public's trust. Unfortunately, due to the actions of a few, the VITA TCE program's integrity and trust have been tested. In these cases, IRS SPEC can and does take appropriate actions against the partners and volunteers involved. So new volunteers must complete the volunteer standards of conduct training. Returning volunteers are encouraged to review the VCS training as a refresher. All VITA TCE volunteers must pass the VAC certification test with a score of 80% or higher. And this is a test that if you volunteer each year, if you volunteer each year, you will have to complete it each year. Any questions or concerns so far? The objectives for this lesson is, at the end of this lesson, you should be able to list the 6 volunteer standards of conduct, describe unethical behavior, use the external referral process to report unethical behavior, identify consequences for failing to comply with the standards, and explain how volunteers are protected. Unethical defined. IRS SPEC defines unethical as not conforming to agreed standards of moral conduct, especially within a particular profession. In most cases, unethical behavior is acted upon with the intent to disregard the established laws, procedures, or set policies. Do not confuse an unethical action with a lack of knowledge or a simple mistake. We know that anytime we are dealing with numbers, key inputs, all of that, mistakes can happen. A lack of knowledge can also happen, especially when we're dealing with tax laws that seem to change at any given moment or second. So don't confuse something being unethical with you making a simple mistake and think that the same rules apply. They do not, as long as it was a mistake made on your part or something that you did without knowing what it was that you had to do. All right. VSC number 1 is that you follow all quality site requirements, or QSR. The purpose of the quality site requirements is to ensure the quality and accuracy of tax returns preparation and consistent operation of sites. Non-adherence to any QSR only becomes a violation of the VSC if volunteers refuse to follow the QSR. If the problem is corrected, it is not a violation of the VSC. You can read more about the volunteer quality site requirements for a full explanation in publication 5166. Below shows a brief description of the 10 QSRs. I won't go into depth on all of them. Again, you can read more here, or you can, it refers you to the publication 5166. So QSR 1 is for certification. Again, I kind of touched on that. The volunteers must complete their certifications using the IRS electronics test through Lincoln Learn. United Way and the IRS promotes doing your certifications through the Lincoln Learn tax site or landing page electronically. It's the easiest and quickest way for you to complete those tests and certifications. New volunteers must complete the VSC training. All new and returning volunteer instructors, preparers, coordinators, and quality reviewers must take publication 5101, which is the intake, interview, and quality review training, and pass intake, interview, and quality review certification. Volunteer greeters, screeners, and client facilitators who assist taxpayers with completing the form 13614C, which is the intake, interview, and quality review sheet, must also take the intake, interview, and quality review training and certify. There is a new publication. It is the 5838, which is the VITA TCE intake interview and quality review handbook. That the intake and interview, it's all been moved to that handbook. So if you want more information on the intake, interview, and quality review, it refers you to that publication 5838. Volunteers who answer tax law questions, instruct tax law classes, prepare or correct tax returns, and or conduct quality reviews of completed tax returns must certify in tax law prior to conducting tax-related tasks. My goal for the end of this training is to get you certified up to the advanced level. You can do the basic if you choose. The advanced certification encompasses the basic. And so it's not necessary for you to take the basic and the advanced. So my goal at the end, always at the end of the training, is to get you certified to the advanced level. QSR 2 talks about the intake, interview, and quality review process, which we kind of touched on in QSR 1. Taxpayers using the services offered through the VITA TCE program should be confident that they are receiving accurate return preparation and quality service. 3 vital processes that result in accurate returns and quality service are effective intake, thorough taxpayer interview, and quality review of the tax return. If you've done a thorough taxpayer interview, once they've completed that 13614C, then inputting that return tends to be quite easy because you've kind of answered all the questions that you need after you've conducted that thorough interview with that taxpayer. QSR 3 is confirming photo identification and taxpayer identification numbers. You want to always ensure that there is a process in place to confirm taxpayers' identity. Site coordinators, assistant site coordinators should have a process in place in order to confirm photo identifications and taxpayer identification numbers, or SSNs, for everyone getting a return prepared, even if it's a married filing joint return. All volunteers must follow the site's process prior to tax return preparation and before a taxpayer signs a prepared tax returns or receives a copy of the return. And so if you don't know what that process is and you're going into a new site, you want to always find out what that process is from your site or assistant site coordinator before you start completing the intake, even the intake or screening process. You want to know what that process is. If a taxpayer has a expired driver's license, does that site accept it? Or do they have to have one that's not expired? And so you want to have all of those questions answered as to not to hold up the process when you are screening and completing the intake process. QSR 4 touches on reference materials. The use of reference material is an important key to preparing an accurate tax returns. All sites are required to have in paper or electronic form the publication 4012, the publication 17, the publication 4299, and any type of volunteer tax alerts and quality site requirement alerts. And so the 4012 is something that you want to always keep with you. It gives you all vital information when you're trying to prepare a return. If you have a question, your resource can be that publication 4012 or the publication 17. QSR 5 is your volunteer agreement. All volunteers must complete the volunteer standards of conduct certification annually. In addition, they must agree to follow the VSC by signing and dating the form 13615. You want to always ensure that you have a copy of this form when you're going into a site, because the site coordinator needs a copy of this form before you're able to volunteer. All right. This is a snapshot of the top of that 13615 form and what it looks like if you've never seen one. This is also a kind of snapshot or screenshot of the certification process. QSR 6 is for timely filing. All coordinators must have a process in place to ensure every tax return is timely electronically filed or delivered to the taxpayer. Again, if you don't know what that process is for the site that you are volunteering at, you want to always get that clear with your site or assistant site coordinator. If the taxpayer has a question on when is my return going to be electronically filed, what's the turnaround, and all of that, you can get that, you'll have that information and know what that information is to be able to provide it to the taxpayer. QSR 7 refers to civil rights information. There are posters that are required to be posted at sites or open sites that give information to taxpayers if they have a question regarding their rights and privileges as a taxpayer. And so all that information is a requirement for most sites. And so, and the civil right, the QSR 7 is one of the posters that are posted at the site. Taxpayers must have access to the civil rights information, even if they do not have a tax return prepared, which is why that poster is required to be in sight at any site that you volunteer at. QSR 8 refers to the correct site identification number, or SIDN. All tax returns prepared by VITA TCE sites must include the correct site identification number. And that's something that's set up in the background. That's something that you don't have to know or memorize. It's something that it's automatically printed on the tax returns because it's already set into the particular software for your site. Along with QSR 9, the EFIN, or the electronic filing identification number. All of those numbers are something that's already set up between United Way, IRS. And so once the system is set up for your site, that information is already included. QSR 10 talks about security. Sites must follow all security, privacy, and confidentiality guidelines as outlined in publication 4299, which is a privacy, confidentiality, and civil rights, a public trust publication. A copy, paper or electronic, of this publication must be available at every site and used when referring to security, privacy, confidentiality, and civil rights issues. Again, it's going to always refer you back to publication 5166 that gives you more information on these quality site requirements. VSC number 2 says do not accept payment, ask for donations, or accept refund payments for federal or state tax return preparation from customers. You do have some customers that are so grateful for the service that you provide that they will sometimes ask, can they give you a donation? Can they pay or something like that? And you have to always say no, because free means we do not accept payment for our services from the clients we serve. And so we don't take any type of donations, any type of payment that they try to offer you for your services. A client may offer payment, but always refuse it and say something like, thank you, but we cannot accept payment for our services. And so you just want to always reiterate that you will have some that will insist on compensating you for your time. Taxpayers' federal and state refunds must not be deposited into VITA TCE volunteers, partners, or any associated organizations, personal or business bank or debit card accounts. VITA TCE sites must only request direct deposit of a taxpayer's refund into accounts bearing the taxpayer's name. It is not your job to verify if that account belongs to that taxpayer. If they make you aware that account is not theirs, you can advise them that you can't use it. You can also advise them that the IRS will sometimes reject those deposits if that deposit is trying to go into an account that does not bear their name. VSC 3, do not solicit business from taxpayers you help or use the information gained about them for any direct or indirect personal benefit for yourself or any other specific individual or organization. You must always properly use and safeguard the taxpayer's personal information. Volunteers may not use confidential or non-public information to engage in financial transactions. They cannot allow improper use of taxpayer information to further their own, another person's, or organization's private interests. Number 3 also talks about securing consent. The consent forms are automatically printed with the tax returns. And when you go through the software, it asks for those consents. There's a PIN number that's set up for them to agree, so that consent to file those returns. There will be some instances when taxpayers will allow the use of their personal information other than for return preparation. Under Internal Revenue Code 7216, all volunteer sites using or disclosing taxpayer data for purposes other than current, prior, or subsequent year tax return preparation must secure a consent from the taxpayer. Again, with this program, there are several types of consents: the global carry forward consent, the relational EFIN consent, and other. That information is provided to the taxpayer at the time they complete their 13614C. Again, your coordinator will have a process in place if consents are required at your VITA TCE site. VSC 4 talks about do not knowingly prepare false returns. It is imperative that volunteers correctly apply tax law to the taxpayer's situation. While it can be a temptation for a volunteer to bend the law to help taxpayers, this will cause problems down the road for the taxpayers. Volunteers must not knowingly prepare false returns. And so if you have a taxpayer that's coming in you don't feel comfortable doing that return, you don't have to do the return. You can always stop. What you always want to do is rely on your site coordinator or assistant site coordinator to assist you if you have any type of question or concern as it relates to a return that you're preparing. Always follow your mind and check with your coordinator or site coordinator. If it's something that the taxpayer says that makes you uncomfortable, if it's documentation that you have, that they have, that they're presenting to you that makes you uncomfortable, you're concerned with, something doesn't look right, you want to always reach out to your site coordinator or assistant site coordinator and get clarification or ask, or you can always refuse to do that return and refer them to a paid preparer. All right. Hardship on the taxpayer. For a low-income taxpayer, it can be impossible to make full payment and recover from return fraud. If full payment is not received, the taxpayer will receive several collection notices. And so if you've been through any type of process at the Internal Revenue Service, you know how intense those can be. And so anytime a fraudulent return is done willingly, unwillingly, knowingly, or unknowingly, it can cause undue hardship on the taxpayer. So that's why we want to always make sure that we are doing our due diligence and making sure that the information we are putting on that return is correct to the best of our knowledge. If the taxpayer doesn't make you aware, then you have no way of knowing if that information is correct or incorrect. You're only using what they provided for you. So you want to always do your due diligence. Identity theft is a nationwide issue, and it continues to grow at an alarming rate. And so that's one of the reasons you want to always verify the identity of any taxpayer that you are assisting, because identity theft is so rampant and easy to do. And so we want to always ensure that we are verifying who it is that we are talking to, who it is we are preparing a return for. That's even if they are using a dependent. We want to always ensure that they have something with the Social Security number for that dependent, so that you know that this information is correct and true to the best of your ability. It says SPEC has a system that extracts information pertaining to tax returns filed through the VITA TCE program, where multiple tax refunds are being deposited into a single bank account. And so that was in relation to the example that was given here. And so if you have this publication pulled up, you can go back and read the examples. There should be an example for each VSC. And so we want to always, again, ensure that we are doing our due diligence when we are preparing these returns. That goes into the VSC 5, where it says do not engage into criminal, infamous, dishonest, or notoriously disgraceful conduct or any other conduct considered to have a negative effect on the VITA TCE program. And so SPEC can prohibit volunteers from participating in the VITA TCE program if they engage in any type of conduct that they consider or is considered criminal, infamous, dishonest, etc. And so you want to always be mindful of how what you do can affect the VITA TCE program. If you have information indicating that another volunteer has engaged in criminal conduct or violated any other volunteer standards of conduct, you can immediately report that information to your coordinator, or there's an email address that you can send an email to. You want to always copy the partner and the local spec territory office as appropriate. And if you don't know who those are, you can always reach out to someone at United Way, whether that's Hunter or Matt, to get that information. Volunteers performing egregious activities are barred from volunteering for the VITA TCE program and may be added to a registry of barred volunteers. And so you want to always be mindful of that. Something that you do that goes against the volunteer standards of conduct can get you barred from being able to volunteer with the VITA TCE program now and in the future. VSC 6, it says to treat all taxpayers in a professional, courteous, and respectful manner. We know that sometimes that can be hard, especially when we are dealing with a lot of people who has to wait a long time, or who feel like they're waiting a long time. And so sometimes attitudes and all of that can play a part in how a person reacts. And so we want to always be mindful of how we respond to these taxpayers when we are put into those stressful situations. And so in order to safeguard the public trust, the Internal Revenue Service employees, partners, and volunteers must maintain the confidence and respect of the people we serve. All volunteers must conduct themselves professionally in a courteous, businesslike, and diplomatic manner. Volunteers take pride, or should take pride, in assisting individuals who come to a VITA TCE site for return preparation. Taxpayers are often under a lot of stress, as well as volunteers, and may wait extended periods for assistance. And so sometimes when they come into a busy site, frustrations can boil over, attitudes can clash. And so we want to always be mindful of how we react to a taxpayer that's responding in a not so respectful or unprofessional way. Any questions or concerns as it relates to the volunteer standards of conduct?
No questions.
All right. Due diligence is something that I mentioned. And it says by law, tax return preparers must exercise due diligence in preparing or assisting in the preparation of tax returns. IRS spec defines due diligence as a degree of care and caution reasonably expected from and ordinarily exercised by a volunteer in the VITA TCE program. This means as a volunteer, you must do your part when preparing or quality reviewing a tax return to ensure the information on the return is correct and complete. Doing your part includes confirming a taxpayer's and/or spouse, if it applies, identity, and providing top quality service by helping them understand and meet their tax responsibilities. Generally, IRS certified volunteers may rely in good faith on information from a taxpayer without requiring documentation as verification. However, part of due diligence requires volunteers to ask the taxpayer to clarify information that may appear to be inconsistent or incomplete. When reviewing information for its accuracy, volunteers need to ask themselves if the information is unusual or questionable. You can always question a taxpayer based on the information that they provided. If something seems inconsistent, incomplete, unusual, questionable, question their taxpayer. A lot of times the person that's doing the intake or the interview process, sometimes they'll go through the information, but they're not taking a deep dive into the information. They're only verifying that the taxpayers have all the information they need in order to get their return completed. But once you start inputting that information and something does not seem correct, or it seems inconsistent or unusual, question the taxpayer. Again, if at any point you feel uncomfortable, as it states here, you should not prepare their return. It's going to always refer you to your coordinator or assistant site coordinator for assistance. Again, you can always refer that taxpayer to a paid preparer that has more experience And you can tell them, that you're not comfortable. Something seems off, whatever that feels like. And if you're not comfortable doing it, take it to your coordinator. But you can always refuse to do that return. That's not something that you have to do because they are coming into a VITA TCE site. While we want to assist everyone that comes through a VITA TCE site, sometimes it can't be helped and we can't do it. So, and it tells you what to do if you're in doubt. And it says make an effort to find the answer. And again, I'm going to always refer you to your site coordinator or assistant site coordinator, or to another tax preparer that has more experience. If you're still uncomfortable, refer them out. You don't have to do it. Failure to comply with the volunteer standards of conduct. The U.S. tax system is based on voluntary compliance. Most taxpayers compute their tax accurately, but at times, unscrupulous taxpayers and preparers evade the system by filing fraudulent returns. For this reason, some sponsoring organizations may perform background checks on their volunteers. The VITA TCE program is operated by sponsoring partners and or coalitions outside the IRS. However, IRS is responsible for providing oversight to protect the VITA TCE program's integrity and to maintain taxpayer confidence. IRS recognizes the hard work volunteers contribute to the programs and does not want that overshadowed by a volunteer's lapse in judgment. The standards are again enforced by you signing that Form 136155 Volunteer Standards of Conduct Agreement to provide guidance to volunteers and instruction for regulating ethical standards. By signing that form, you are agreeing that you would adhere and abide to the volunteer standards of conduct. If conduct violating the standards occurs at a VITA TCE site, IRS SPEC will recommend corrective actions. If the site cannot and will not remedy the conduct, then IRS SPEC will discontinue its relationship and remove any government property from the site. In cases of wrongdoing, illegal conduct, and or management practices that violate the VSC, IRS SPEC may terminate a VITA TCE grant. A volunteer's conduct could put a site or partner in jeopardy of losing its government funding. And so again, we want to always ensure that we are complying with the VSCs, that we are doing our due diligence, that we are always acting in the best ethical way that we can. And so as to not have a grant or funding pulled or a site closed. It can happen. And so we want to ensure that we do everything that we can in order to have that not to happen. Again, it refers you to that email address. If you identify, if you see, if you suspect any type of issues that you think are unethical, you want to always go to your site coordinator, or if you don't feel comfortable talking to them, I will always refer you to United Way. Whether that's Matt, whether that's Hunter, whether that's Janet, whoever that is at United Way. If you're not comfortable with your site coordinator or assistant site coordinator, you want to always reach out to someone that can assist you with whatever issue that you're having. All right. A volunteer's role in reporting questionable activity. Honest taxpayers and tax preparers preserve the tax system's integrity. To sustain confidence in the VITA TCE program, you must report violations that raise substantial questions about another volunteer's honesty, trustworthiness, or fitness as a tax preparer. That doesn't mean that you have to watch and scope out the scene of every volunteer to make sure they're doing what it is that they're supposed to be doing. That's not necessary. But if you so happen to see something that questions the integrity of their volunteer, then you want to bring it to someone's attention. As a site coordinator or assistant site coordinator, it's their responsibility to determine if a volunteer has acted unethical or does something that has violated the volunteer standards of conduct. They need to immediately first remove that volunteer from all activities, deactivate their access, and then notify both the partner and IRS SPEC with the details of that violation. You don't want that volunteer to continue to have access to the system or to other volunteers or taxpayers when you believe that they have violated the volunteer standards of conduct. that wi.votax@irs.gov email address is the external referral process. Again, if you feel like something has happened, you can always email that email address. You want to always include the partner or the local SPEC territory office if you know who they are. It says the email notification should include your name, contact number, the site name, and a detailed description of the incident. If you have that person's name, include that as well as the date the incident occurred and the number of taxpayers affected by the violation if it applies. That email address can always be found on your intake form, which is the 13614C. It's in the back, I believe it's in the back of the 4012, if I'm not mistaken, or it used to be. It is on the publication 730, which is the envelope that you provide to the taxpayers with their tax return in it, and in the publication 4836. All VITA TCE sites are required to display publication 4836 in a visible location to ensure taxpayer awareness of the ability to make a referral. The volunteer registry is something that I mentioned. If you're found, or if someone is found to be in violation of the volunteer standards of conduct, they can be put on the registry for egregious actions and willful violations. They will be added to their volunteer registry. They could be barred for the lifetime of the program or however long they choose. But you will be added, or their volunteer will be added to their registry. Some egregious actions include creating harm to taxpayers, volunteers, or IRS employees if you refuse to adhere to all the QSRs or the quality site requirements. If you accept payment for return preparation at a VITA TCE site, you can be barred from completing returns or volunteering at a VITA TCE program in the future. And so you want to, again, always ensure that you are doing what it is that you know to be correct as it relates to the VSCs. Again, unfortunately, one volunteer's unethical behavior can cast a cloud of suspicion on the VITA TCE program as a whole. And so the consequence to the tax site or sponsor organization could include removal from all VITA TCE programs, disallowing the use of the IRS logos. It can be referred to TIGTA for any kind of TIGTA or criminal investigation, as well as they could lose grant funds and money their partner can. Violating the VSCs can have an impact on taxpayer because a taxpayer is responsible for paying only the correct amount of tax due under the law. And so if something happens, if you intentionally misrepresent or put something on their return that's not true, then that can impact a taxpayer and how, if their return is pulled for an audit, or if it results in the taxpayer is owing, then that has a huge impact on a taxpayer and can cause financial stress for a taxpayer. And we don't ever want to put them in that type of situation. And so it is imperative to correctly apply the tax laws to the taxpayer situation. While a volunteer may be tempted to bend the law to help taxpayers, this will cause problems in the future. Again, this is not referring to you inputting something in error or something that you were not sure of. That's a mistake or something that can be corrected. But if it's something that you are intentionally putting on a return that you know that should not be there, then that can cause harm to a taxpayer. And we don't ever want to cause harm to a taxpayer or anyone that we are servicing. It goes on page 14 to tell how might a taxpayer find relief. It tells what if the taxpayer is not telling the truth. It's not up to you to determine whether or not the taxpayer is telling the truth, unless you feel like through your interview or through your preparation that something is unusual or questionable. If a volunteer brings you the documentation, if they have a dependent listed on their return, it's not up to you to determine whether or not they have the right to claim that dependent, whether or not they have a right to, if they're saying this information is theirs, and it does not look questionable, if it does not look unusual, you can prepare their return. You don't have to verify if that taxpayer is telling the truth. That's something that's left up to the Internal Revenue Service. Let Internal Revenue Service and their examination department do its job once their return is completed and processed. The only thing that you need to do is to ensure that you are doing your due diligence to ensure that the information that you are putting on the return is correct to the best of your ability. And that's through doing a thorough interview to ensure that all the information that taxpayer is giving you is correct, does not look questionable or unusual. All right. It wants to always remind you that if a volunteer is not comfortable with the information provided from the taxpayer, you are not obligated to prepare the return. I don't care how few years you've been volunteer or how many years you've been volunteer. If you are not comfortable with that information, you do not have to prepare their return. You are not obligated. A site coordinator can't even obligate you to prepare their return at their site if you don't feel comfortable doing it. All right. The taxpayer review and acknowledgement. After the return is completed, an IRS tax law certified volunteer must discuss the filing status, dependents, income, adjusted gross income, credits, taxes, payments, and the refund or balance due with the taxpayer. The volunteer must address any taxpayer questions and concerns about the return. If necessary, ask your coordinator for assistance. And so normally, once that return, if I'm quality reviewing a return and I'm the last person the taxpayer has to see before their return is printed and signed and they're given a copy before they sign that 8879 or whatever it is they're signing, I always make them aware that you're signing this return, stating that everything on this return is true to the best of your knowledge, and so that they know. And so it says the tax return includes the following disclosure statements. Under penalties of perjury, I declare that I have examined this return and accompanying schedules and statements, and to the best of my knowledge and belief, they are true, correct, and complete. You don't have to say all of that in that manner. I don't even know if site coordinators require you to even say any of it. But for me, before I have a taxpayer to sign that 8879 or consent, whatever it is they're signing, you're signing this saying that based on your best belief and knowledge that all the information is returned is true. And so they can't say, well, I didn't know what I was signing, all of that. No, we went over it. I showed you everything that this return had. I went over the taxes. I went over what you owe or what refund you're getting, the credits that you were allowed, all of that before you were able to sign it. And so you want to ensure that you're doing that. All right. As a certified volunteer, you are covered under the Volunteer Protection Act. Public Law 105-19, which is the Volunteer Protection Act of 1997, or the VPA, generally protects volunteers from liability for negligent acts they perform within the scope of their responsibilities in the organization for whom they volunteer. The VPA is not owned or written exclusively for the Internal Revenue Service. This is a public law and relates to organizations that use volunteers to provide services. And so what the VPA does is promote the interests of social service program beneficiaries and taxpayers, and to sustain the availability of programs, nonprofit organizations, and governmental entities that depend on volunteer contributions. So what that is saying is that we take all the liability off of you if you are performing your due diligence and under the volunteer standards of conduct. If you step outside of the volunteer standards of conduct and you knowingly, willingly prepare a fraudulent return or any of that goes against the volunteer standards of conduct, then the Volunteer Protection Act is not going to cover you. If you are doing your due diligence, if you are following the volunteer standards of conduct, the quality site requirements, you are doing what your site coordinator has advised you to do, that is correct under this program, then the Volunteer Protection Act covers you. It takes all liability from you as it relates to the preparation of these returns, even if a taxpayer is audited, that has no liability to you. as long as you are acting within the scope of the program. You're not willfully or criminally engaging in any type of misconduct or anything that can go against the safety of the program. Volunteers must only prepare returns that are within their tax law certification level, their site certification level, and the level of certification under the VITA TCE program. There is a scope of service chart in the publication 4012 that we will go over. If at any point you have any questions about what is in scope for the VITA TCE program, you want to always refer to that scope of service chart, or you want to take it to your site coordinator. You don't ever want to do anything that's outside of the scope of the VITA TCE program. It says, in general, if volunteers are performing their responsibilities while adhering to the volunteer standards of conduct, they are protected. However, local and state laws still must be considered. Sponsoring organizations should seek advice from their attorneys to determine how this law protects their volunteers. Any questions or concerns so far? All right. All volunteers are required to register and certify via Lincoln Learn Taxes. And I will show you what that looks like. I will help you walk through setting up an account if you don't already have one. And so you will know how to get into the Lincoln Learn landing page so that you're able to complete all certifications that you must do. That form 13615, the Volunteer Standards of Conduct Agreement, is found in your Lincoln Learn account or landing page. When the volunteer signs the form 13615, again, you are agreeing to the Volunteer Standards of Conduct. It is also used to capture the volunteer's certification level. And so once you complete those certifications in Lincoln Learn, it automatically populates to your 13615 to show the site coordinator or wherever you are volunteering what certification you have passed or what certification level you are at. All right. New volunteers must review the training prior to taking the certification level. It says that it's optional for returning volunteers, but I always encourage all volunteers to review that training prior to taking that certification test so that you have the best information that you need in order to answer the questions as it relates to that certification. Volunteers may view training by using the Lincoln Learn Taxes, which is always preferred. It's the quickest and easiest way for you to complete that certification, and as well as review all the training. You can download the publication 4961, which is this book that we are currently, or publication that we are currently in, as well as the form 6744. And that's where you're going to find all the questions to every certification that you are needing to do is found in the form 6744. Volunteers who prefer to take the certification test on paper, utilizing form 6744, you will need to reach out to someone at United Way to see how you can complete that if you are trying to test on paper. Again, the easiest and quickest way for you to do that is to log into your Lincoln Learn landing page. You are required to pass the VAC certification test with a score of 80% or higher. And I believe all certifications have an 80% or higher pass rate. So you have to, and the certification in Lincoln Learn allows you 2 attempts on every certification. If you don't pass after those 2 or complete the certification after those 2 attempts, then you'll need to reach out to someone at United Way to see what that next process is. The intake interview quality review certification, all those certifications again are in the Lincoln Learn. You must pass the appropriate tax law certification test for what you want your level to be. If you don't want to prepare complicated returns or returns that include dividends or Schedule C income or things of that nature, then you can stick with the basic. However, if you are, most returns can sometimes turn into what you think is a basic return, can sometimes turn into a complex return, and advanced certification is needed. And so I always recommend the advanced certification so that there are no questions as to what it is that you are able to prepare. All right. It says you can check the volunteer agreement digital signature checkbox in the Lincoln Learn Taxix, acknowledging that Form 13615 has been read and agreed to. And it will give you the option once you sign into your Lincoln Learn landing page, and you have completed the certification, then it'll give you the option to check that box and sign that form. If you are a site coordinator or assistant site coordinator, you again have to pass that certification as well with a score of 80% or higher. After each test, the Lincoln Learn Taxix system on Vita TCE Central will add the letter P to your Form 13615, indicating a passing score for the VSC training. And so whatever certification that you take, complete, and pass, it's going to put that information on your 13615. So you don't have to remember it. You'll have it. You'll have to print that form and take it with you to your sites. And so your site coordinator is able to know what you are certified in. Page 17 goes into if you have any type of problems, how you can go about resolving them. And so you can you can read that further in detail at a later time. But it advises you if something has happened that has violated, if an individual or company has violated tax laws, there's a form that can be submitted to the Internal Revenue Service. If taxpayers are a victim of identity theft, it gives you the number to the IPSU unit, which is the Identity Protection Specialized Unit at the Internal Revenue Service. And so they can contact them. They'll advise them of all the steps that they need to take so that they can be identified as a victim of identity theft. If taxpayers believe they have been discriminated against, it gives you information on how taxpayers can either write or email a complaint. If they have account questions as it relates to balance dues, refunds, whether it's state or local, it gives you all information on how or where to refer those taxpayers to. All right. Is there any other questions or concerns?
I have a question. This is Kim Owens here. For the certifications, do we have to finish the complete training this week before we get started, or do we do it after each course, like Monday, you can start? How does that work as far as certification?
So as far as the volunteer standards of conduct and the intake interview, is that what you're referring to?
Yes. How does the certifications go? Do you have to do it after each training that you would do this week, or can you start, or can you start, doing this week as well?
No, so you don't have to wait on me or us in this class in order to take any certification.
Okay.
And so now that we went over the volunteer standards of conduct, what I do like to do is to go over the certification. And so then all you have to do is to log into the Lincoln Learn learning page and then answer those questions, because the questions that we go over is the certification test. And so all you have to do is to fill those in. And so no, so that's not something that if that's something that you all want to do, as far as we go over volunteer standards of conduct and take a few minutes for you all to complete that certification, if that'll help you, then we can do that. If not, then you can always do that on your off time.
I know that would help me. I think that's a great idea you just said.
To do it after we go over it?
If that's a suggestion that we can do, I would say yes.
I don't have an issue with it.
I prefer to do it on my own.
Oh, and you have everyone has their right. The Lincoln Learn, once you've set up the Lincoln Learn, once you went to that landing page, created your account, and you're able to get into that to do your certification, you don't have to wait on me, this class, or anything else in order to do your certifications. The certifications is something that you all can do on your own. It's not required that you sit through and go through each one with me. You can do those certifications on your own. All right. Any other questions or concerns?
Hi, LaQuisha.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Ella Whitty Walker. How you doing?
I'm good, Miss Ella. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just wanted to make a suggestion. Since we have new people on the line, it is always better that once you go over the questions before they go into Lincoln Learn to put it there, it's best to go over those questions. And that way they won't have a problem when they get into Lincoln Learn.
Right. So
It's much easier and it's not as stressful, because when you're on your own and trying to do it, it gets a little stressful.
it
So
does.
the way that you are suggesting they do it, I think is great.
Okay. And now, so we will go over it. And so I'm not limiting anyone as far as stopping you from moving forward on any other certification. And so if by the time we get to the intake interview process part of it and you've already taken that certification, that's fine. But for those who have not, we'll take a few minutes after we go through the training, after we've gone through the questions and answers, for you to be able to log into Lincoln Learn and input those, complete that certification. I'm sorry, someone have a question?
This is me, Albany Townsend Taylor. I was just gonna ask, with the Lincoln Learn site, is that separate from the Internal Revenue Service?
Yes, and I can show you that. We can take a few minutes and go into the Lincoln Learn site, and so that you all can see what that looks like. Give me 1 second.
While you're trying to find that, do we, when will we get our login information for Lincoln Learn?
So that's something that you create yourself.
So you all gonna send us an email with the link in it to create the account? How are you all gonna do that? That's what I'm asking.
I can put the link into the chat box.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
While she's looking that up, in case you're not looking at the chat, I wanted to point out there were some instructions for creating the Lincoln Learn account. It was sent in an email on December 19th, and the subject line was United Way Free Tax Prep, important info and training dates. That was a pretty long email, but right around the middle of it, there's some instructions on how to set up your Lincoln Learn account, as well as a PDF attachment that provides, just some screenshots and examples to help you walk through it.
Thank you so much. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
I'm still seeing the 4961.
Okay, let me do a new share.
Hunter, can you resend that email that you sent on December 9th?
Sure thing. Can you type your email in the chat? If you still need that email, can you put your email address into the chat and I'll forward that to y'all?
Was it sent to our work or our home email addresses?
It would have been sent to whatever email you used to sign that little Google form where it was collecting your contact information. Whatever email you put into that is the one that'll be used for the mailing list for volunteers and site coordinators.
Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes, yeah, I can see it now.
Okay. So this is what the Vita TCE landing page or Vita TCE Central looks like. And so anytime that you log into it, this is where it's going to bring you to. And so from here, you're able to see the tax lessons that we're going to go over. It takes you to it gives you PDFs of the certifications. It takes you to the Vita TCE training guide, the practice lab, anything that you need to, the quick links that you need are there. If you have not already created an account before, if you are returning, you will have to, I think it made you do another password if you had not logged on since October or something of last year. If you have logged on since then, you're fine. But if you are a returning volunteer, your account is still there. You just have to change your password. However, if you are a new volunteer, you will need to click on create account. And the information that I believe Hunter sent out is the information that you will need in order to create that account. It answers what do you need to put for group, things like that. Is everyone at a point where they need to create an account or can create an account?
Hi, I have a question.
Okay.
On the screen now, you have created an account. So I'm an IRS employee. So would I check IRS employee even though I might volunteer at an off-site location as well? Do I have that option?
Yes. So I always choose 8 for myself. I'm an IRS employee as well. And so I always do IRS employee volunteer.
Okay. Okay. So that would allow me to do at our central location on Getwell and as well as another site in Memphis if I choose to?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hunter, are we required to choose number 1 or is choosing number 8 fine? I've always chose number 8. And so
I'm not entirely sure. I've always chosen number 1. I suppose if you do work for the IRS, then I think number 8 would be accurate, but anyone who doesn't actively work for the IRS would need to put number 1.
Right.
And kind of on that topic, I just sent the email to everyone who posted their email in the chat. Thank you all for doing that. There's PDFs that provide kind of some instructions for how to create your Lincoln Learn account, but I would still encourage y'all to just listen as we shall walk you through it right here, as well as in the body of that email to pay attention to the 2 notes, because the PDF I sent you is how to do it if you were with AARP. So there are 2 big things that are different than what those PDF instructions say. And it's that when you select your group under self-registration, hit 01 Vita Volunteer like on this screen instead of number 2. And then when it asks for partner or organization name, use United Way of the Mid-South instead of AARP TaxAid. Just keep in mind that those 2 things will be different. Otherwise, that PDF should be a helpful guide in navigating creating an account.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? Has everyone created an account, or
This is Inez.
Uh-huh.
I can't get on my site, right? I can't get on my computer right now. So can you send that information to me to how to log in to my email account?
So you should already have it in your email. It should already be there.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions about creating an account?
So are we gonna, so when we do ours, we'll just select something?
I'm sorry?
So when we do set up the account, we'll just select the first option?
As a Vital volunteer?
Yeah.
Yes, so if none of the others apply to you, then Vital Volunteers is what you need to select. That's what you are, a Vital Volunteer. I only select 8 because I am a volunteer, but I'm also an IRS employee. And so I could have also just did Vital Volunteer. It still would have been fine. But they just want to know where you are volunteer or where you fall as a volunteer.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Unfortunately, I'm almost an hour late.
Are you fine? Are you fine?
I'm just zooming into the meeting. I was hearing you say something about setting up an account.
Mm-hmm. So, are you able to see? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. The one that says self-registration.
Right. And so this is the Vital TCE landing page. And so if you've never, if you're new to the Vital world, if you've never created an account here, what you're going to do is create an account.
I'm sorry. Okay. So just created an account with this Vital VD. Let me see.
So are you logged in now, or is something you're going to do later?
I'm not logged in now.
And it's not something that you're required to do right now. I just wanted to let everyone know what it looked like. And so if you're new to the Vital world, or you've never had a Vital TCE login or an account, then you will have to create an account, because
yes, ma'am.
Logging into here is where you will do your certifications.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Okay. And you said we supposed to.
I'm sorry, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm sorry, do you have another question?
Oh, I was just
if you're saying something, I can't hear you anymore.
Is Spec OPI training what we're doing?
No, so the OPI is a new training. This year there's over the phone interpreter. So no. And so if you want to take that training, you can. That's not a requirement. And so that can be no if you're not taking that training. If you are not a site coordinator or assistant site coordinator, then you don't have to take the site coordinator certification. That's going to be no as well. No if you're not an instructor. No if you're not an IRS Spec territory manager. And do you plan to volunteer in the Vital TCE program? Should be yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when it asks for your training source, you can do the Lincoln Learn Taxes e-learning, unless I don't know that.
So we basically have 2 yes answers, right? Look like it.
Out of these questions?
Yes.
So it's just going to depend.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And so if you're not taking the OPI training, you're not a site coordinator, instructor, or manager, then all of those would be no. The only thing that will be yes is that you plan on volunteering. If you are a site coordinator, then of course that would be yes, as long as yes, I'm planning on volunteering.
On the training source, is it the e-course or 443 publication?
I use the Lincoln Learn Taxes, which is the e-learning.
Okay.
Hi, Srini, it's Troy. Good to see you. Let's have lunch soon.
Yeah, okay, yeah, let's yeah.
And so on the handout that Hunter sent, it says for training source, you're going to select publication 44991 for training.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm sorry, it got real quiet. I didn't hear anything. I want to ask another question. Could you do the training for volunteer and do site coordinator too as well?
What do you mean?
So y'all have site coordinator, the text and the screeners.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to just pick one?
No, I mean, so you can take all the training that you want to take. If you want to take the site coordinator training,
Yes.
It's not limited. It doesn't.
Right.
If I don't think if you click no, it's not going to allow you. If you click no, then it'll block you from taking that certification. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, if you are not a site coordinator or assistant site coordinator, then there's no point in you taking that certification. That's just something
Yes.
extra that you will be reading and doing. If you are a site coordinator, then you are required to take the certification and training for the site coordinator.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I have a quick question, if I may go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time out to go through this information. My question is, sorry, the portal that we're required to log into to do the certification, is that after the 3-day training sessions? I think you were saying earlier that we may go ahead and do the certification, or if we would like, we can wait until the end of the training. Did I get that correctly?
That's correct. So as a new volunteer, I think you're required to do 12 hours of training.
Okay.
From my understanding or how it's been in the past, you're not required to do all of that training with me. Some of this training you could, if you choose not to sit on this Zoom for 3 hours for the next 4 nights and do this training, then you can go through this training on your own and complete all of these certifications. All of the information is available in the publication 4491, in the publication 4012 at there's a site on irs.gov that gives you all the links to these certifications. And so you can go through all of these trainings on your own if you choose to and complete the certification. And so, but if not, then if you don't want to do it on your own and you want to go through it with us these next 4 nights, then the advance is the only thing that will be the last thing that we do, because we have to go through all of the training in order to complete the advanced certification. As far as the volunteer standards of conduct, that's something that we can go through tonight, that certification. We should have enough time to also complete the intake, interview, and quality review training. And so that's something that we can go through that training and go through that certification part as well. You're not required to enter to complete the certification tonight, but we will go through it.
Okay, so it's approximately 4 different tests that we're required to do, or is it one test?
That's let me log in and I'll show you.
And my final question is also, is there a timeline? Because I had expressed an a site coordinator, so I have some classes next week as well. Is it that by this weekend I should complete this certification before moving on, or there is no specific timeline to have the certifications completed?
The certifications just have to be done before you start volunteering.
Okay,
Yeah, so I can't lock you into a time on when it's required to be done. It just has to be done before you are able to volunteer. You have to certify that
Right.
you are that you've completed the volunteer standards of conduct. If you are only going to be a screener, greeter, then you have to take the intake, interview, and quality review exam. And so you have to, before you're able to volunteer at any site, then you have to have your 13615 that shows that I've completed the volunteer standards of conduct certification, as well as the intake and interview, so that the site coordinator will know that you are now certified to be an intake or a quality review person. However, if you are a preparer, then you will need to complete either basic or advanced certification. And so that needs to also be done before you are able to volunteer at a site.
Okay, thank you.
So once you log into the VITA TCE homepage, landing page, and you've already created your account, you have your login, your username, and your password. Once you log in, this is where it's going to take you to. So for me, I did up to advanced. And so it gives you all of the exams that you need to take as far as to be certified up to the advanced level.
Can we, so, excuse me, we need advance, right? Do we need advance?
So I would advise for you to do advanced, depending on what you are doing as a volunteer.
Yes, ma'am.
If you are simply doing intake, interview, or if you or screener, greeter, screener, then no, you can stop at intake, the intake interview.
Okay.
If you are preparing returns, then I would advise for you to do it to the advanced level.
Yes, ma'am.
Because if not, then you'll be limited on what type of returns you can input.
Thanks.
Excuse me, I have a question. Take my hand down. Hold on, let me lower my hand. When do you all start processing returns? So when do you actually start doing the returns? Do you have a date yet?
January 22nd, when our first few sites will start opening. We'll gradually open up the rest of them throughout that week, but that Monday, January 22nd, is our opening day for our tax site.
Can you go back to the basic page again? You were on, not the basic, I'm sorry, the first page you were on at first.
Where you create an account?
Not that one.
I'm sorry.
Right after that.
Which
I'm
page?
sorry, I had one more question. I couldn't unmute myself.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay, go ahead.
Someone, what page were you, was it the create an account page?
No, it's create account. Just the one right before that you were on.
Here?
Is that the first page we're gonna all land on after we were created?
Oh, no, so that's going to be here.
Okay. And
So once you go to Link Learn Taxes certification.com or Link Learn, let's see, Link Learn Taxes certification.com. This is where it's going to bring you to.
Okay, and once you sign in, we'll go to the next page you brought up.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so in the email that you sent, Hunter, it said that we had to do these trainings, but Miss LaQuisha just said that we could not come on the Zoom, but we can do the training at our own pace, which is correct.
You can take the certification test at your own pace, but we strongly encourage all of our volunteers to go through these trainings as we walk through them. But in terms of actually, taking the certification exams, you can do those at your own pace. We don't have like a testing session where we like monitor y'all take the exam. Like you do that at your own pace.
So the information that you guys are providing through the Zoom link is not on that link and learn page.
It's similar information, just, you know,
Uh-huh.
Ms. Rucker does a great job teaching it, and then we think it's a little more thorough than just, you know, Lincoln Learn as a resource by itself. But it is covering, you know, the same information.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question. So you mentioned that come the 21st, that Monday, that's when you'll start assisting persons.
This is Annette.
Sorry, can you repeat? Oh, is it Monday through Fridays, or will this also be done over the weekend? Or what time during the week? Because
So once the 22nd starts, our tax sites will be open. So we'll be operating on the schedule of our tax sites, and we'll be assisting customers directly at the site. We won't be offering any additional virtual modules for training or anything after the 22nd. That 22nd date, that Monday, is when our sites begin to open. So once that happens, we will, you know, shift our energy and our personnel into operating the sites and actually working with taxpayers and processing returns. And, you know, in terms of what that schedule will be, that really
Right.
depends on the different sites. Like we have somewhere between, I think, 15 and 20 tax sites, and they have different site schedules of their own. In general, they're mostly, you know, at least a few of them operating Monday through Saturday. A lot of them are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. But there's some that have different schedules. And there's some that, you know, we have a mobile schedule for some that kind of go around and do different mobile tax sites. So, you know, it's kind of a few different schedules, but in general, you know, we're operating Monday through Saturday, and a lot of that being from 10 to 4.
Okay, thank you, because I also work. So I just wanted to find out, because it sounded as if it would be during working hours, but if you have sites that operate on the weekend, then fine. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or concerns as it relates to the Lincoln Learn, the certification, where you take your certification, any of that?
I have one question.
Okay.
So how many tests is it for tax preparers?
So as a preparer, you need to be certified at least up to the advanced level.
Okay, so can you go into which all the tests of those, so I just know make sure I do all of them?
Hold on one second.
Yeah, it'd be the standards of conduct, the intake, interview, and quality review, and then the advanced certification. So it would be three exams.
Oh, 3, okay.
I believe that's right. But yeah, you were gonna pull it up, but it should be those 3 as far as I'm aware. Also, while she's getting that, to answer some of the questions in the chat, the partner organization name is what for IRS employees. I can't speak for IRS employees, but you know, if you plan on volunteering with United Way of the Mid-South, you can put United Way of the Mid-South as the partner organization name. And the second question, you should not be required to get a PIN from the IRS in order to make a Lincoln Learn account.
Never mind.
Can you all see my screen? Is it showing the VITA TCE
Yes.
page? Okay. So under the advanced, it'll show, and so mine shows site coordinator because I it's just something I always take. And so under the advanced level is gonna show your volunteer standards of conduct, the intake, interview, and quality review, as well as the advanced. And so if you are preparing returns, those are the 3 that you are required to take.
Thank you.
Mhm. So it just depends on what your level is of where or what your position is in the VITA program as to what tests or certifications that you will need to take. Again, if you are simply just being a greeter, screener, all of that, then the volunteer standards of conduct intake interview is enough. But if you are preparing returns, then then advance is where you would need to be. All right. Any other questions or concerns?
No.
Okay. Can you all still see my screen?
Yes.
Do we need a break? Does anyone need stretch break, 5 to 10 minutes before we hop into this volunteer standards of conduct certification?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll pick up on the volunteer standards of conduct test.
If we don't want to go through the test tonight, can we just log off?
So what's going to happen? You're more than welcome to log off at any point. I can't commit to you to any of my time or however that works. What this will do is to go over the questions and answers for that certification. And so all you'll have to do is to then input those answers into your certification test. If you don't want to do any of that with us, then by all means you are. But please keep in mind, as a new volunteer, you are required to complete 12 hours, if I'm not mistaken, Hunter, 12 hours of training certification.
That's correct. We project that to get the certification to be a tax preparer, we've, projected it takes about 12 hours to complete these training sessions, as well as to take the exams.
All right. So let's take a 10-minute break and we can be back at 7:55.
Alrighty.
Thank you kindly.
Her apartment and her door was open, and I kind of like pushed it
Hello, are we all back?
Yes.
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 Ex-death row guy.
All right. So what we're going to do is to cover the volunteer standards of conduct test. And this is going to go over cover the information that we just went over as it relates to the volunteer standards of conduct. These test questions are the same questions that you will find in your certification. So if you don't have a hard copy form 6744, then I would advise for you to get some pencil paper to jot these answers down, because these are the same answers that is required to complete your certification. And so all you'll have to do is to log into Lincoln Learn, input those answers, and then your certification for the volunteer standards of conduct will be completed. All right. And so again, it is important that all individuals who volunteer their time and services in the VITA TCE program understand their roles and responsibilities under the program. It says that all volunteers must take the VSC training at a minimum, annually pass the certification test, which is the test that we're ready to go through with a score of 80% or higher. Sign and date the form 13615, which is the volunteer standards of conduct agreement. And I will show you all that if you need me to. That form again indicates that you have successfully completed the certification test and that you agree to adhere to the volunteer standards of conduct. All right. Any questions or concerns before we move on? Again, you must answer 8 of the following 10 questions correctly in order to pass the volunteer standards of conduct test. If you do not pass on your first try, there is a second attempt that you are given in Lincoln Learn. They are different questions. There is normally different questions if you have to retake the other certifications. As far as the volunteer standards of conduct, I believe it's the same. All right.
Okay.
All right. So question 1 says, prior to working at a VITA TCE site, all VITA TCE volunteers, that's greeters, client facilitators, tax preparers, quality reviewers, etc., must A, annually pass the VSC certification with a score of 80% or higher, B, sign and date the form 13615, C, pass the advanced tax law certification, D, all of the above, or E, both A and B.
A and B.
D.
Are you saying D as in David or B as in boy?
D as in
D
David.
as in David. A and B.
I said D, so I don't know.
E.
Hold on.
Okay. So
E
I heard
is the answer, both A and B.
So I heard D. Somebody said D, which is all of the above, and then I heard E, which is both A and B. The correct answer is E, both A and B. Volunteers do not have to pass the advanced tax law certification unless you are preparing returns. And so this question is related to all volunteers. So all volunteers are required to pass the VSC, or volunteer standards of conduct, and sign the form 13615, but not all volunteers have to pass the advanced tax law certification. So the answer is E as in Edward, both A and B. Number 2 says, can a volunteer be removed and barred from the VITA TCE program for violating the volunteer standards of conduct?
Yes, A.
Anyone disagree? That's correct. The answer is A. If a taxpayer offers you a $20 bill because they were so happy about the quality of service they received, what is the appropriate action to take? Take the 20 and thank the taxpayer for the tip. Appreciate you so much. I needed it. B, tell the taxpayer it will be better to have the $20 deposit directly into your bank account from his refund. C, thank the taxpayers and explain that you cannot accept any payment for your services. Or D, refer the taxpayer to the tip jar located at the quality of service and print station that all volunteers split at the end of the night.
C.
Anybody disagree? That is correct. The answer is C. You cannot accept any payment for your services. No matter how hard they try, you can't take it. Number 4 says Jake is an IRS tax law certified volunteer preparer at a VITA TCE site. When preparing a return for Jill, he learns that she does not have a bank account to receive her direct deposit. She is so distraught because she knows it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks longer to receive a paper check than it will for her to receive her direct deposit. Jill asks Jake if she can deposit her refund in his bank account and then turn the money over to her when he gets it. If you were Jake, what would you do? Offer to use your account to receive the direct deposit and turn the money over to Jill once the refund is deposited. Explain to the taxpayer that a federal or state refund cannot be deposited into a VITA TCE volunteer's bank account, and she will have to open an account in her own name to have the refund direct deposited. Or suggest she borrow a bank account number from her friend because the taxpayer's name does not need to be on the bank account.
B.
Any disagreement? That's correct. Number 4 is B as in boy. Advisor that we cannot do anything of the sort. Number 5 says Max prepares a tax return for Ali at a VITA TCE site. He finds out while he's interviewing Ali that they don't have any health insurance. So after Ali leaves, Max writes her name and contact information down to take home to his wife who sells health insurance for profit. Which of the following statements is true? There is no violation unless Max's wife makes a big commission. Max has violated the VSC because he is using the information he gained about Ali to further his own or another's personal benefit. Max is doing Ali a favor by using her personal information to secure business for his wife. Information a taxpayer provides at a VITA TCE site can be used for the volunteer's personal gain.
B.
You're saying B as in boy, D as in David?
B as in boy.
Any disagreement or confusion on this question? The correct answer is B. B as in boy. He has violated the volunteer standards of conduct by taking this information home to his wife. Number 6 says Bob, an IRS tax law certified volunteer preparer, told the taxpayer that cash income does not need to be reported because the IRS does not know about it. Bob indicated no cash income on Form 13614C. Bob prepared the tax return excluding the income. Jim, who is the quality reviewer, was unaware of the conversation and therefore unaware of the cash income, and the return was printed, signed, and e-filed. Who violated the volunteer standards of conduct?
Bob, the tax law, Bob did. Because the taxpayer told him about the money and he violated by not reporting it.
Jim, B. Is it?
Okay, so the correct answer is A. Bob is the one who violated the VSCs because the only reason Jim or the site coordinator is not held responsible because they were not privy to that conversation that Bob had with Jim. And I'm sorry, Bob had with the taxpayer. And so because Jim was not aware, he didn't know that the information had been excluded because he was not privy to the conversation to even know cash income was even involved. Now, had that conversation been had and Bob was made aware, then they both would have been in violation. But because he did not know and he reviewed the information and the return and information as it was presented to him, then it all fell on Bob. So number 6 is A. Number 7 says Sue, who was a coordinator for VITA, was watching the local news when she saw Aaron, new tax law certified volunteer, in a story about several bank employees being arrested for suspicion of embezzlement. She saw Aaron being led out of the bank in handcuffs. 3 days later, Sue is shocked when she sees Aaron show up at the site ready to volunteer, apparently out on bond. She pulls Aaron aside and explains that his arrest on suspicion of embezzlement could have a negative effect on the site, and therefore she must ask him to leave. She removed his access to the software, then uses the external referral process to report the details to SPEC. Did she take the appropriate action?
I think she did, yes. Hey, I would have to look at that, go to the website to see though, but I think
The
she
answer
did.
is yes.
Yes, she did.
That's correct. She did. Because even though she doesn't have any proof or
Mhm.
any of that, he's still, with him being arrested, suspicion of embezzlement, it still could be a potential ethic impact on the site or the coordinators and all of that. So as a coordinator, I would have done the same thing. I don't know if you're guilty. I'm not accusing you, any of that, but because of what I saw, I can't have you here at the site. You can always refer them to the partnering agency, in this case, United Way, and say, talk to United Way, let them make the decision. But as far as this site, I can't have you here because, but once you send that email, then they'll take it from there.
Okay.
Number 8 says Sam is assigned to prepare a taxpayer's return. The taxpayer has been waiting for a long time due to the volume of taxpayers needing service. The taxpayer is agitated when they sit with Sam. How should Sam interact with the taxpayer? Should he keep calm, create a peaceful and friendly atmosphere, or remain professional and courteous, or D, all of the above?
All of the above.
All of the above.
That is correct. And we know a lot of these tax sites will have a long wait time, long lines, all of that. And so when we do come across some taxpayers that are agitated, frustrated because they have to wait, but you should always keep calm, remain peaceful and professional, no matter how the taxpayers present themselves. Now, if it comes to a point where the taxpayer is just being outrageous, you can't do anything with them, then they can always be asked to leave the site and refer them to another one or refer to a paid preparer. Number 9 says VITA, TCE sites and volunteers must not solicit business from taxpayers or use taxpayer information for personal or business benefit. Is that true or false?
True.
That is correct. Number 10 says being is preparing a tax return and the taxpayer has a dependent listed. The dependent is a child of the taxpayer's cousin. The child lived with the taxpayer a few months. Being prepared the return and noted on form 13614C, the child lived with the taxpayer all year. Did being violate the VSC? A, yes, being knowingly prepared the return with false information. B, yes, but the return was accepted, so everything is fine. C, no, the cousin gave permission. D, no, the cousin wasn't filing a return.
A.
That is correct. Whether the cousin gave permission, the cousin wasn't filing their own return, whatever that looked like, he still knowingly prepared the return with false information because the taxpayer had already said the child only lived with me a few months. And so a few months doesn't equate to 12. And so always be mindful of that. Any questions or concerns as it relates to the volunteer standards of conduct certification?
No.
All right. I think we should have enough time to go through the intake, interview, and quality review training. It shouldn't take us that long to do that. Let me get it for you. Any questions?
These are, I'm sorry. This is the actual test here? Or
Yes.
is just, oh, okay.
That's the actual certification. So when you log into your Link and Learn, you've already created your accounts, you put in your username and password, and you go to certification, and you click on the certification for the volunteer standard of conduct. Those are gonna be the same questions that you see.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So the VITA TCE intake, interview, and quality review training, if you are simply going to be a screener or greeter screener, then this is a certification that you'll have to take. If you're going to quality review a return, you'll also have to do that as well. Again, this is a certification that you have to pass with 80% or higher. So you have to get 8 out of 10 of the questions correct on this certification as well in order to pass. All right. So it says preparing and accurate tax returns begin with explaining the tax preparation process, completing all questions on the form 13614C, listening to the taxpayer, asking the right question, and it ends with a quality review to ensure accuracy. The form 13614C, intake, interview, and quality review sheet is a tool designed to help ensure taxpayers are given the opportunity to provide all needed information before their tax return is prepared. When used properly, this form effectively contributes to accurate tax return preparation. Again, as I've stated, if you are preparing returns, answering tax law questions, instructing classes, anything like that, conducting a quality review, then you have to certify in tax law prior to conducting tax law related tasks. You can't be a preparer if you haven't went through the tax law training, completed the advanced certification, or the basic or the advanced certification. You can't quality review or return if you haven't done the same. You can be a greeter, screener, all of that without tax law. However, if you want to prepare returns or anything of that nature, then you'll have to do the tax law. Okay. I am using the publication 5101. However, you can use that. There is a link in publication 5325, which is the fact sheet for filing season training for spec partners and volunteers. You can find more information as it relates to this training there. The purpose of this training is to emphasize the positive correlation between the proper use of the intake, interview, and quality review processes and the preparation of an accurate tax return. QSR number 2 that we went over, it states that it is mandatory that form 13614C be completed for each tax return prepared. The accuracy of VITA TCE returns have increased for sites using that form during their intake, interview, and quality review process. If, as a volunteer, you refuse to follow the intake, interview, and quality review process, you are in violation of the VSCs. And so you can get with your site coordinator, assistant site coordinator to see what their process is. Normally, there's a sign-in sheet, a clipboard available for the taxpayers to get the form 13614C for them to complete, along with any type of consents that need to be done, any surveys. All of that information is given to the taxpayer. They need to complete form 13614C and answer all the questions to the best of their ability. Then that intake interview person goes over that form with them to ensure that all of their questions have been answered. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to describe the purpose of following a consistent intake, interview, and quality review process, the different sections of the Form 13614C, which is the intake, interview, and quality review sheet, and I'll show you one of those. The basic steps of a complete intake process, the basic steps of a complete interview process, and the basic steps of a complete quality review process. Some of the errors that were found during the 2023 review of the 2023 filing season, volunteers or quality reviewers, site coordinators were not advising taxpayers of their responsibility for information provided for the preparation of their tax returns. Using the self-review method to quality review returns. If you are a returning volunteer, you know that self-review is never accepted as a method to quality review tax returns. Not signing the tax return after the quality review process, not fully completing the Form 13614C, or not using the Form 13614C, using taxpayers' prior year tax return to verify identity. Sites using the prior year tax return quality print set summary page to validate information rather than completing page 1 of Form 13614C. And so you want to always be mindful of what you are doing your process as to not result in any type of error of that return, any information being input incorrectly, missing credits that the taxpayer may be used to, anything of that. So, and that's why we have that second look or that quality review process. So that if it's something that you miss, that quality review person may can catch in their quality review process. And we want to always ensure that the taxpayer is signing their return after that return has been quality reviewed and discussed with that taxpayer. The intake process. You want to always greet the taxpayer, determine their purpose for their visit, explain the intake, interview, and quality review process, ensure the taxpayer has all the documents required to prepare the tax return. Sometimes they come into these sites and the wait time can be long. We don't want taxpayers sitting there for a long extended period of time, and then by the time we get to them, realize that they don't have all the information that they need in order to even get that return completed. And so sometimes, depending on how many greeters, how many intake people that you have, sometimes they can assess that information quickly, whether or not that person has all the documentation that they need in order to get their return prepared, so that they don't have to wait, so that they don't have to sit there 30 minutes, an hour, whatever their wait time is, and then get to you as an intake screener and realize that I can't even assist you because you don't have all the information you need. During that intake process as well, that person determines the certification level of the tax return and who can prepare their return. So if there's any preparers at that site that are only certified up to the basic level, and then so we know that that person has Schedule C income, we know that that person with basic certification can't input that return. And so as the intake person, you are responsible for assigning volunteer preparers based on their certification level. All right. You want to always greet the taxpayer, advising them, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for returning. I remember you, or however that conversation looks like. You want to verify that they are there to have their taxes done. If they are just there to ask a question, if they want to know what your hours are, then that's something that can be taken care of quite quickly. But if they're there to get their taxes done, then you follow through with whatever that next process is. And so you want to always explain the overall process to the taxpayer so that they'll know what to expect. You advise them that they need to complete the Form 13614C in its entirety prior to having the return prepared, and also have all supporting documentation as it relates to what they are checking that they have on their 13614C. Advise that they are going to be interviewed by the return preparer so that they can answer any additional questions that may be needed during the process of their preparation. and that they will need to participate in a quality review of their tax return by someone other than the return preparer, so that they'll know that you just won't be with this one person during your entire visit. There are several steps that you'll have to go through before your process is completed.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 levels, right, of tax preparers? Is that what I'm just trying to make sure that's what you said. There's 2 levels, basic and advanced, right? Okay. On the basic side, what do we have to do if we just do basic?
So on this is the intake interview and quality review sheet, the 13614C, and you're hearing that reference a lot doing this training. This is the initial form that a taxpayer is going to receive when they walk into a site. And
okay, so that would be like a basic preparer will do that?
No. So I'm
okay.
Yeah, so this form is given to each taxpayer as they come into their site. And so this form tells them what all they need. You need your income information documents, W-2s, 1099s, Social Security cards, picture IDs, things like that. But when it gets to page 2 of their 13614C, and they're answering questions about the type of documentation that they had as it relates to income, expensive, life events. If you notice beside all these numbers, it has a B, A, M. And so that lets you know what type of certification level is needed in order to complete their return. And so if the taxpayer comes in, they've only worked 1 job that year, I don't have any dependents, I'm just trying to get my return done, and they only have a W-2, then if you've only certified up to the basic level, you can complete that return.
Got you. Okay.
However, if they come in and they say, I have self-employment income, I have I did Uber, or I did something along that nature, or I have a 1099-R, then we know that's advanced level. And anyone that is certified up to the advanced level is able to prepare their return.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. I was kind of confused there for a minute.
So what does the M stand for on number 14?
Military. Oh, I'm sorry, I knew that. That's the only one I did know.
Any other questions or concerns as it relates to the 13614C or the certification levels?
Oh, question about the military. So that means you have to be certified as military? Or
for that one, yes. And so it kind of depends on, and it says income or loss from rental property. Yeah. And so I've never completed a military certification, never done a military return, anything to that nature. So it's just going to depend on what type of income that is. And that's something that the intake screener person will be able to weed out if they have anything that's related to military or military certification is needed, and there's not a person there that's certified to that level, then you have to refer them to a site that has someone, or to a paid preparer.
So if someone has income for rental property or loss, they have to have military certification?
Based on this 13614C. And so it may be different once we get into the tax law portion of it, and it advises the military, and because if it's a simple Schedule E, which is for rental property, I don't see that being military, and so that may be something different.
Okay. Thank you.
Get back to. Oh, where am I? The next part of this is the verifying identity. It is very important that you are verifying identity of the taxpayer. If it's married, filing joint, the husband and wife, it's imperative that you are verifying the identity of the person whose return will be prepared. So as the intake person, as the screener, the greeter, the intake interviewer, you are obligated to, required to verify the identity and that's to help avoid identity theft. So the interview must begin by requiring a photo ID for the taxpayer and their spouse if it applies. It says the exceptions for requiring a photo ID can only be made by the site coordinator under rare circumstances and for taxpayers known to the site. And so, and you will need to know what the site coordinator's process is. And so if it's a long-standing site, we know that we have taxpayers that are returning volunteers that have been there since the site has been open for 10 years, 12 years, or however long they've been coming to a VITA TCE site. And so that site coordinator sometimes knows these particular individuals. And so if that individual presents with a expired driver's license, or they forgot their wallet at home, or whatever that looks like, you need to know what that process is for that site coordinator in order to verify that person's identity. You just don't want to take the word of this person. I've been coming here for 10 years. The person knows me, and you bypass this requirement. No, you still need to run it through your site coordinator, notate it somewhere that it was verified. So if anything, that their identity has been verified. It always refers you back to the publication 4299, which covers privacy, confidentiality, and civil rights, which is a public trust. Required documents in the intake process is, again, a photo ID for the taxpayer and their spouse if it applies, Social Security card or individual taxpayer identification numbers for all persons listed on the tax return. And so you want to always make sure they are aware of that. If they are filing a return for themselves, any dependents that they claim on their return, they must have a Social Security card or whatever that process is for your site. And so you want to always go to your site coordinator to know what that process is. It used to be where we could use the last year's return to verify Social Security numbers. I don't know if that's changed based on the errors that were found from reviews. And so again, you want to get that clarified with your site coordinator, because they should have a process in place to verify IDs as well as Social Security numbers, Social Security or ITIN numbers. You want to ensure that the taxpayer has all proof of income, expenses, and life events, just like it showed on page 2 of the 13614C. If they state on that 13614C that they have W-2, Social Security, 1099 Rs, whatever that looks like income, then they need to have all of those documents. If they don't have all of those documents, then you need to advise them that they need to return when they do. You cannot, and if they say, I just forgot it, just don't include it, I can't. You've already advised me that you have this income, and so you will need those documents. Again, that form 13614C is a tool that is designed to assist IRS tax law certified volunteers in asking questions to obtain the information needed to prepare an accurate tax return. You want to ensure all questions are answered with either a yes or no, and that any questions that the taxpayer has answered as unsure is discussed and you change it to a yes or no. You don't ever want to leave any question as unsure. You want to verify with the taxpayer, why are you unsure about this? And so did you have, if they put unsure on interest, did you receive an interest statement? Did you have interest charged? Whatever that looks like. And so then you are able to answer yes or no. So the methods for completing the form 13614C, the taxpayer can complete the form 13614C at the site before meeting with the tax preparer, or they can complete it prior to arriving at the site. I've had some instances where the taxpayer will go online and get the form 13614C and already have it completed when they come, and that's fine, as long as they have it completed. If they need additional assistance with completing that form, then they'll get that completed with the intake and interview person. The form 13614C is printed in English and Spanish. but it's also available in 23 other languages and can be printed from the irs.gov website. Again, just like we just discussed with the 13614C, it indicates the certification level that's needed in order to prepare that return. And so you, as the intake greeter, screener, whoever you are that's going through this 13614C, you are assigning this return to a preparer based on their certification level. If everyone in that site is certified to the advanced level, then you know that they can take those returns as long as it does not require any additional certifications such as military. The site must have a process to ensure the return is within the scope of the VITA TCE program and to identify the certification level needed for the tax return. And so you want to always ensure that you are going through this information. Sometimes we've had taxpayers to get to the preparers, and we then realize by the time they've gotten to the preparer that they're above the income level, or what type of return they need is out of scope for the VITA TCE program. And so then we have to refer them to someone else or to a paid preparer, because we can't help them if they're out of scope of the VITA TCE program. And so you want to always be mindful of that when you are looking at that 13614C and speaking with that taxpayer. Again, there's a scope of service chart that's in the 4012 that we will go over. We won't go into detail with it because it is a lengthy chart, but it will show you, depending on the type of information, income document, whether or not it's in scope for the VITA TCE program. Again, it says if it's out of scope, explain to the taxpayer that they don't meet the guidelines or the requirements for the VITA TCE program, and that they will need to seek assistance from somewhere else, like a professional preparer. Again, every site is required to have a process for assigning returns to volunteer preparers who are certified at or above the level required to prepare the return. A greeter, screener, or client facilitator can assign returns only if certified in intake, interview, and quality review certification. Only IRS tax law certified volunteers may interview the taxpayer. Again, you want to confirm the taxpayer's photo identification and their ITIN or SSN number. You want to review the form 13614C with them. Go through the interview process with them to ensure that everything is answered in its entirety on that 13614C. Verify their documents, their filing status, their dependency determinations, and review the documentation that they have to ensure that it matches what they're saying on the 13614C. You don't ever want to begin entering taxpayer information into the software until you have that review has been completed, because then you can get into, because we've had instances where we've gotten into the preparation of their return and figured out that this person was out of scope for the VITA TCE program. And so we don't want to have that happen if we can stop it at the beginning. Again, you want to always verify the identity of the taxpayer. You want to always verify social security numbers. And make sure that you know what that process is for your site. It goes again into the exception for known to the site. And you want to always run that through your site coordinator. Just because you know that person does not mean that they are qualified based on the known to the site. You want to always make your site coordinator aware of this process procedure, so that you both are in alignment with the proper procedures for verifying the identity of that taxpayer. It says that only the site coordinator has the discretion to grant an exception to the requirement to provide a valid form of identification for taxpayers known to the site. And so although you may know that person, you've known that person for years, you don't want to bypass this exception with talking to your site coordinator. It says known to the site refers only to taxpayers that frequently visit the same site every year for tax return preparation and is known to the coordinator. Only the site coordinator has the authority to approve these exceptions. Example of not known to the site, it says Bob goes to the VITA TCE site to have his taxes prepared. He left his ID at home and wants to know if he can still have his taxes prepared today. Jane has been preparing Bob's tax return for the past 5 years at the site. She requests approval from the site coordinator for an exception. The site coordinator is new and does not know Bob and does not approve the exception. Bob returns home to get his ID. And so you and your site coordinator will have to be on one accord as it relates to this exception for known to the site, because the site coordinator, again, is the only one that can approve those exceptions. It says each year SPEC has seen inconsistencies with using the form 13614C. When reviewing the form 13614C, you want to always ensure that you're looking at the information completed by the taxpayer, that you're engaging in a conversation with the taxpayer, not just using the information that they provided, but you're asking clarifying questions. And those clarifying questions will help you to complete all parts of that form 13614C, as well as changing any unsure answers or any blank answers that the taxpayer may have left unanswered to either yes or no. There are answers that require questions to be completed by a certified volunteer preparer, gray shaded area of that form. So ensure that that is being done as well. Again, due diligence is something that you will always hear through the VITA TCE program. You want to ensure that you are doing your due diligence as a volunteer to ensure that the return is complete and correct and complete. We want to do this as accurately as possible to avoid rejections, to avoid errors, to avoid the taxpayer having to return to the site for any reason. So you want to rely on information from a taxpayer without requiring documentation as verification, clarify information that may appear to be inconsistent or incomplete, determine if the information is unusual or questionable, and discuss concerns with your coordinator. If you have any concerns, always discuss it with your coordinator, site coordinator, or an experienced preparer. If you're new to preparing returns, you're not sure where this information should go, if this information is correct, always go to your site coordinator, assistant site coordinator, or a more experienced preparer to get your concerns or questions answered. It always advises, if you are not comfortable with the information provided by a taxpayer, you are not obligated to prepare their tax return. It says, for example, a taxpayer stated they are self-employed and from their business, they earned $20,000 but had no proof of earnings. The taxpayer brought in expense receipts totaling $25,000. You do not feel comfortable with preparing the return, so you seek assistance from the coordinator due to questionable information from the taxpayer. Now we know all self-employed people don't receive 1099 NECs or 1099Ks or whatever that looks like. And so it may have been a cash business, but at some point that taxpayer should have proof or something of those earnings, whether or not they are handwritten, that they keep all of their receipts in a book or a notebook, or they keep a journal of what they've earned for the year. They should have some sort of proof and be able to provide that for you. Again, if you're not comfortable, you're not obligated. Clarifying information while reviewing the form is an effective way to gather all needed information. Again, you want to use probing questions. You want to ask open-ended questions, and you want to confirm information provided by the taxpayer is complete and accurate. It says, for example, you mark that you will be claiming your grandchild. How long did they live with you? Don't just assume that a dependent lived with a taxpayer for 12 months. You want to ask clarifying questions to get that question answered. I see you have a pension. What are your other sources of income? For me, if a taxpayer has completed the 13614C and they've only listed that they had pension, they've answered no to anything else, you can clarify the question. But if they've answered no on that 13614C, you don't have to press them to make sure that they understood what those questions said, or they had any other You just want to ensure that you're asking all type of questions or clarifying information so that that return is completed correctly. You want to update or correct the intake sheet with any changes identified during the interview with the taxpayer. Make sure those corrections are legible so that the preparer can read it, notate it during their preparation process. Again, it says sometimes an entry on the 13614C raises questions or raises additional questions. You want to be alert for any unusual circumstances. The first example says, I see that you and your husband both work and have a son. I don't see any expenses for childcare. Me, myself, that's not something you'll sometimes always catch. If you've been preparing returns for a while or for a long time, then you know that some people will have childcare expenses, some won't. To me, that's not a probing question. I may ask it, may not. It depends on the taxpayer and the situation. But if you see that and it prompts you to ask those additional questions, then by all means, ask those clarifying questions because it may be something that the taxpayer forgot to bring. I forgot to bring, we did pay childcare and I did have a statement and I forgot it or something to that nature. But again, it's not something that I would just necessarily probe for. Again, this is the 13614C and what the top part of that form looks like. That is the entity information or name, address, date of birth. It does not have a spot on here for a Social Security number. That is something that you are going to verify with the Social Security documents or the Social Security card or ITN letter or whatever that person has. But the top part of that form is all entity information, and you want to ensure that information is correct when you are going through that process with the taxpayer, because this is the information that you're going to be entering into the system for that taxpayer for that return. There's a note that says if the taxpayer indicates they are not a U.S. citizen, there's a flow chart in the publication 4012 under tab L. That would help you to determine if you are certified to prepare their return or if they need to be referred to someone else. It states that information in part 1 impacts many tax law determinations. It is important to make sure each question is marked yes or no. The full-time student, permanently and totally disabled, legally blind, all of those impact credit, standard deduction, things of that nature. So we want to always ensure that the taxpayer has completed that information, whether it's a yes or a no. We don't want to leave anything blank. It refers to the publication 17 to determine whether or not the taxpayer meets the qualification as a full-time student if they, for some reason, are not sure whether or not they meet that requirement. If a taxpayer or spouse is totally and permanently disabled or legally blind, again, it affects multiple tax law issues, such as if the taxpayer can be claimed as a dependent and their pension taxability. And so we want to always ensure that those questions are answered either yes or no. Part 2 is a marital status. It does not ask the single head of household, qualifying widow. It doesn't ask those. Filing status is questioned. It asks what their marital status was as of December 31st of the year. So the form for this year will have as of December 31st, 2023, what was your marital status? And so then that's going to determine whether or not what that person's filing status could possibly be. And if anytime you are unsure of what that filing status should be, there's a decision tree built into the software as well as in your publication 4012 to help you and the taxpayer. If they put that they are divorced, legally separated, or widowed, they will need to answer these additional questions so that we can determine whether or not what filing status they are able to take. Part 2 goes into household information. It helps to make determinations about the filing status, dependents, as well as the credits and deductions that person may be entitled to. This form says to list the names below of everyone who lived with you last year. I don't know why they list that as such. Most times, because then they're going to list everyone that was in the household, whether or not they're claiming them as a dependent or not. In that case, you will have to verify if that taxpayer is claiming that person as a dependent. And if not, your site coordinator could advise you of what the process is. If you just scratch through it, if you put a yes or no that they're going to claim that person as a dependent or not. And so then you'll have to complete that gray shaded area that says to be completed by a certified volunteer preparer. Part 3 is income. Each income item includes type of forms used to report that income. So if a taxpayer is unsure what they mean by wages, it means did you receive a form W-2? Interest and dividends, if you received a 1099 INT from or 1099 DIV from the bank, things of that nature. And so if they're unsure of if they should answer yes or no, it tells them what type of form that they should have with them. Any questions or concerns so far? Part 3 also goes into self-employment income. That's the 1099 miscellaneous, NEC, cash that it normally, those are for people who operate a small business. If they do the Uber, the DoorDash, things like that, they're going to receive the 1099 NECs, 1099 cash. And so that falls under self-employment income. And so they want to always be mindful of where those go and how they answer those questions. Again, we want to always ask probing questions, even if all the questions on the form 13614C have been answered. And so it says, for example, the taxpayer checks yes to the question retirement income or payments from pensions and annuities. If they have given you a form 1099-R from an IRA distribution, ask, is this your only distribution? Again, that's something that the screener or intake person will go through. And whatever your process is in verifying that they have completed or given you all the type of documentation needed for whatever particular income they have checked on that form, you want to ensure that you are using. You want to notate comments when taxpayer provide additional information not captured. You want to correct errors or omissions of information found prior to or during the interview with the taxpayer. And again, enter that information on the 13614C so that the preparer can have access to that information, because we're, as preparers, not privy to the information that you have because you went through that interview process. Part 4 goes into expenses. If they did child independent care expenses, if they receive a 1098 from school, things like that is going to be captured in that section. It says a best practice is make a note on form 13614C if they've checked that they have that they want to itemize, but you realize they don't have enough to itemize. You can note on the form there's not enough to itemize, that they're taking the standard deduction or whatever that looks like. The next part 5 tells about life events. If they have a 1099 SA, 5498 SA from a health savings account. If they have a 1099-C, which is a cancellation of debt. Did they adopt a child? Did they have any type of credits, earned income, child tax credit, or anything like that disallowed in a prior year? That's a completely different process. If they've received the first-time home buyer's credit, all that information is needed. So we want to ensure that all questions are answered going through this entire 13614C form. Page 3 just is for additional information. And it asks questions such as, would you like to receive written communications in a language other than English. If they want to donate to the presidential campaign fund, that is there. If they want to, if they are due a refund, do they want direct deposit, or do they want to use their refund to purchase U.S. saving bonds, or to split the refund into different accounts? So all of that is listed in that section. Along with the 13614C is normally the consent. The form 15080, the consent to disclose. A lot of these consents are automatically added to the software, but the 15080 is used to initiate the global carry forward of taxpayer data. And what the global carry forward is that if a taxpayer went to the Hickory Hill site last year and they're now going to the Southland Mall site this year, then that information is carried forward from one site to another, when in past years that had not been an option. And so they signed that form giving consent for the information to be carried forward to another site. The taxpayer does have the option to decline this consent. They are not obligated to accept it. After that form is complete, they went through the intake and interview process. The form had, all the answers have been done on that form. The taxpayer has all of their supporting documentation. Then they are assigned to a preparer in order to have their return prepared. The publication 4012 is something that you want to always keep with you. If you have a hard copy of it, it will be your go-to for any type of questions or answers, any type of question that you don't know right off. The publication 4012 may have the answer for you. The publication 17 is another one that is a good publication to have on hand, and most sites will have hard copies of these publications. I thought we would be able to get through this entire training on tonight, but it is 8:53. I don't want to hold you all longer than the time that I have been allotted to hold you. I know it may have been a long day for some of you, so we can pick up here on tomorrow and get this completed. Is that fine for everyone?
That's fine.
Yep, that's fine.
All right.
Yes.
So
That's fine.
on tomorrow, we will pick up here with the quality review, the intake interview quality review process. We will go through the questions and answers for the certification portion of it. And then we'll hop into scope of service, important changes for 2023, things like that, before we get into tax law. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. See you all back here on tomorrow. If you think of any questions that you have afterwards, write it down for me and we can go over them on tomorrow.
Thank
Will
you,
we be able
LaQuisha.
to access this recording?
Yes, this recording will be made available to y'all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.